So my name is Bridget. I'm Métis, just like all our other interpreters here. I'm going to talk to you guys about the sash today. So as you can see, I'm wearing a sash, and a lot of Métis wear these sashes as well because we use the sash to identify ourselves as Métis. So these sashes were originally made during the fur trade by the fur trading companies, and then they were sold to the fur traders as a tool to be used. This is the typical length of a sash for a fur trader. It's about 3 meters long, and these sashes were very essential for them as well. They had a lot of practical uses. So the first is that they would be worn as a belt. This not only helped keep your pants up, but it also acted as a really great way to carry things around. So when you have a sash this long wrapped around your waist, there's a lot of folds in the fabric. These create little pockets, so they would carry things around like their bars of pemmican, whatever sort of they needed to carry with them, their flint, anything small that would fit in there, they would. These sashes also helped them to lift really heavy things. Fur traders had to be able to carry 2 90-pound bales of fur on a daily basis. That's 180 pounds. So what they would do is they'd create something called a tump line using these sashes. So a tump line is when the sash goes around your forehead, and then the load would get secured on their back using the sash. This not only helped distribute the weight evenly, it also meant their hands could be free while they were snowshoeing around in the winter, doing their trapping and hunting and carrying their furs to be traded. These sashes also helped prevent a common injury that would occur from all this heavy lifting. And something that commonly happens when you lift heavy loads is called a hernia. So wearing the sash around their waist would actually help prevent a hernia from occurring. But these sashes have one more really cool use that I'm going to point out to you guys, and that has to do with this fringe here on the end. What would happen is fur traders would keep a little needle tucked in the end here. It was typically made of bone, but if they had a little bit more money, it would be made of steel. And what would happen is if they got a tear in their clothing, they would unravel one of the threads from the fringe and use it to stitch up their clothing. They also used it as a first aid kit. So if they got a nasty cut or gash that needed stitches, they would use this to stitch themselves up. But these sashes were super expensive to buy from the fur trading companies. A fur trader typically needed 2 functional sashes at once. And so if something happened to your sash, that was not really good for business for them. And Métis were fur traders for many generations, so they used these sashes on a daily basis. So something that they did to help overcome this barrier of these sashes being so expensive was they found a way to make them themselves through a process called finger weaving. This here is an example of finger weaving that's being started, and finger weaving sashes can take over 300 hours, which is a lot of time and effort, but it was a lot easier for the Métis to acquire wool for the sash than it was to buy a brand new sash that was super expensive and overpriced probably. With the creation of finger weaving, the Métis started to make the sash a little bit different than they originally were. This sash here is the pattern from the Northwest Fur Trading Company, and this is the pattern from the Hudson's Bay Company. The Métis started to change these patterns and colors. As the Métis started to make these sashes themselves, they started to change the patterns and the colors in the sashes. So each community or family would have a sash that would represent themselves. It's like how in Scotland, each clan has a tartan that represents them. The same thing happened for the Métis with the sash. So then if you were at a barn dance and there was a cutie sitting on the bench, you'd look at her sash, and if it wasn't the same as yours, you know she wasn't your cousin and she was safe to date. So unfortunately though, something that happened is after the 1885 resistance and the hanging of Louis Riel, a lot of Métis went into hiding. They were afraid to practice their culture for fear of being arrested or killed. Unfortunately, part of what happened is a lot of the family sashes and patterns were lost during that era. But it's something that the Métis are trying to reclaim today. As well, I'll just touch briefly on the celebration sash right here. This sash is sort of become the unifying sash for the Métis people. It's the one that we wear at all our festivities and all our gatherings, and it's one that unifies us as a people because we can all identify ourselves under it. No matter what company you worked for or what your family sash was, we can all agree that this one represents us as a people, and that's something amazing and incredible about us.